Somewhere around my 19th birthday, I was leaving a Toys R Us empty-handed, and as I was passing by the registers, they had magazine racks, and I saw this magazine here. It's cover dated June of 1993, but of course these come out a few months earlier than the cover date. That's the date you're supposed to pull them off the racks. Anyways, this ugly Superman thing did not catch my eye. This did! Look! The Thing! I said, what the heck? Fantastic Four on the movie screen. So I immediately bought this. This is Comic Scene issue 34. I'd never heard of this magazine before, never saw another issue since. Maybe I did, I don't know. It didn't stand out to me, but let's flip this thing open. So we're gonna get a little timestamp of what it was like when this magazine came out. Of course, you've got the Street Fighter comic book coming out. Topps trading cards were big. Now it's getting exciting. A live action Fantastic Four. I couldn't believe my eyes. So a tribute to the creator of Mad Magazine, Harvey Kurtzman, because he had just died in February of 1993. So they put this article together, put it in the issue. 1 month earlier, in January of 1993, Star Trek Deep Space Nine debuted. So we were only a few months into season 1 of Deep Space Nine, and I was loving this show. My favorite part in the beginning of that first season, Jake and, well, he's not in the picture, but his nephew Nog, the Ferengi boy, hanging out in the promenade, kind of on that, overhang, with their feet dangling, just kind of looking over everybody. I identified with them. I think I was a little bit older than them, but I close enough to being a kid, thinking about how cool it would be to just hang out on a Star Trek space station. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're at the dawn of Image Comics. We've got Jim Lee trying out his Frank Miller Sin City art style for his comic Deathblow. I remember at the time thinking, boy, that looks really cool, but it's so different from Jim Lee's regular style, which I didn't care for anyways, but this I care for. But I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't make heads or tails. I was like, wow, I didn't know that you could change your personal drawing style that drastically just on a whim. And plus, I wasn't really familiar with contemporary Frank Miller work of that time. I didn't read Sin City and stuff like that. I knew of his Dark Knight Returns work and, of course, his Wolverine work and Daredevil. But this right here, what they're doing is they're talking about not only Deathblow coming out, but Deathblow was making his debut, as well as the Max and this Rob Liefeld character, Bloodwolf, in a comic called, well, it was supposed to be a comic series, mini-series, I don't know if it was ongoing, whatever. It's called Darker Image. It ended up just being a one-shot comic, and it was delayed, even though it was debuting the characters that came out after, the Max issue 1. Image was really weird in that first year or two, but exciting times. I'd love this Sam Keith cover because he made a much better Bloodwolf than Rob Liefeld did, and I remember copying this pose in a lot of my drawings. I don't know. Okay, so here's an article about Jack Kirby making a comeback, but not really. It was just a bunch of his characters that I guess he created but didn't do anything with. He was still alive, but he was retired from drawing and writing, and so all of the hot artists and writers of the day were taking up the Kirby mantle and producing lots of comics based on this stuff, or at least that's what the intention was. I don't know. I don't remember any of this stuff. It must not have lasted. And of course, you got Eric Larson doing the Eric Larson special, grabbing all of the characters no one's ever heard of and putting them in his comic so nobody can read it. Okay, here we go. Here it is. Clobbering time. The big screen Fantastic Four movie. I saw this. I was like, I cannot believe they're making a Fantastic Four movie. How did I not know about this? Well, here's the deal. It was happening, right? This is like the first inkling that anything was happening. Okay, let me take it back a little bit. You've got German producer Bernd Eichinger. These German names. So he tried getting the rights to make a Fantastic Four film in 1983. Couldn't get them. kept at it, finally got them in 1986 for $250,000. I don't know what that is adjusted for inflation right now. You could do it yourself. But anyways, he kept trying to make a Fantastic Four film since he got the rights, but he just couldn't pull it together. He was trying to go nice big budget, nice film. Let's do this right. Like Superman and then, Batman that came out in 89. Let's do it right. Couldn't do it. His rights to make a movie were going to expire on December 31st, 1992. And he went into a mad panic. I'm running out of time. What do I do? Let's just look at these pictures real quick. When I saw this, I went out of my mind with excitement. Okay, back to the story. So he says to himself, who can help me put together a Fantastic Four movie really quickly on a low budget just so that I can retain the rights so that I can keep working on getting a bigger budget film? And he came up with Roger Corman, which he did. And Roger Corman began work on this film December 28th, 1992. That's 3 days before the rights would expire. So production begins. He's able to retain the rights. They filmed this in 25 days, so through most of January of 1993. This magazine just came out a few months after that. They were writing this article on the set of the final day of filming. This was made with a budget of $4 million. Again, adjust that for inflation. But unfortunately, the movie never came out. I got this magazine. I saw this stuff. I was like, I cannot wait for this. This is what I want. And years went by and it never came out. And I would talk to people and they go, what are you talking about? A Fantastic Four movie? No, there's no such thing. Nobody had gotten this magazine. And if you didn't, there was no evidence of this film ever in production for years because it didn't come out. As you can see, my copy is signed by Alex Hyde White, the actor that played Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. So it was a huge disappointment for me for many years that this movie didn't come out. Eventually, it came out as a bootleg. I got that. I enjoy it. Yes, the special effects are terrible. It doesn't matter. This would not have hurt Marvel. Marvel had filed bankruptcy, in 1996 or 7 or something like that. Anyways, it didn't matter. And they sold off the rights to all this stuff. So nothing was going to hurt them more than they had already hurt themselves. They were done. And this was not any worse than the Captain America movie that had come out in 1990. Well, even then, it didn't come out theatrically. It went direct to video. It was supposed to be a theatrical film. And prior to that, the Dolph Lundgren Punisher film. None of these things hurt Marvel, and they weren't good. It really should have come out. I was so disappointed for such a long time. They did make a documentary about this film and how supposedly it was never intended to be released. It's a little hard to believe when you read this article. It's so depressing. Even when you watch that documentary, these actors, they did the research, they put in the work. Everybody involved in this, the costumes, the director, the writer, they put so much work into this. They were serious about it and they were so hopeful of what could happen from it. And, to just kind of throw it under a dumpster and pretend it never happened is very sad. Just put it out. Let it be a flop. Let it be a laughing stock. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Everything is disposable. You put it out, it's good, it's bad, it doesn't matter. You move on, you go on to the next thing, you reboot it. Okay, so what ended up happening? He retained the rights. Yes, and then what did he do with them? Well, he's the guy who produced the 2005 film and its 2007 sequel. I like those films. It's a good thing he did retain the rights. I like those movies. I just wish he'd also put this out too. I mean, if you spend $4 million on it, how can you lose any money by putting it out? Don't even advertise it. Cut your losses. Put it out. Okay, I'm going to stop harping on that. Now, did this Eichinger German guy have anything to do with the Fan Four Stick movie with Michael B. Jordan? No, because he died at the age of 61 in 2011, which was 4 years before that movie came out. And that 2015 movie sucked. But anyways, that was 10 years ago. And now Disney is producing a new version for 2025. And it looks good. I'm excited about it. Can't wait for it. But I do have a little problem here. My problem is with the MCU. It's great. It's great that they can finally make these movies the way they should be made. They look great. Everything about them is great, except for the fact that they have to tie them all together. That hamstrings them. That's why you end up having Spider-Man as the kid sidekick to Iron Man. That's why you have the Fantastic Four coming from an alternate, multi-dimensional other realm or something, who then have to come into the universe the MCU exists in, and you've got Iron Man playing Doctor Doom. Oh, I'm not even going to start complaining about something that hasn't even come out yet, but you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so we get what we get. I'll just accept it. Let's keep flipping. Okay, now here's a stupid article. When strikes Mojo Man. This is a guy, he conceives of what it would be like to be a superhero in real life and what are the legal ramifications. So are you legally allowed to run around in public in a costume? Are you legally allowed to try to apprehend criminals and stuff? This is stupid. You can't have there is no superpowers. You're just a guy in a Halloween costume running around trying to make citizens arrests. I guess they got to pad out the magazine. Okay, here we go. Mystery of Steel. So, in January of this year, 1993, they killed off Superman, and then they bring in 4 replacements that all say, hey, I'm Superman, and they start fighting over that. One of them is this guy, Steel. It's an iron worker who creates a suit of armor that mimics Superman's powers. So you can create a suit of armor that can make you fly 1,000 times the speed of light and flick planets into oblivion. And I mean, come on. Another one of the Supermen was a clone of Superman that Lex Luthor made, but he was young and he became a Superboy clone. I don't know. And then there's this ugly guy, a cyborg. And then there's this guy. So here's the clone Superboy. And then there's this guy. This is supposedly until then unknown half-brother to Superman from Krypton, who ends up being a bad guy named the Eradicator. I don't know. I didn't read any of this stuff at the time. I always thought that Superman Red and Superman Blue were some of these replacements of those. Those guys came a few years later. Kind of. They actually debuted in 1963, and then they came back in 1998. See, the real Superman actually came right back in 1993, just later in the year, maybe a few months after this magazine came out. Enough about that. It's all kind of lame. This is the only comic I got, The Death of Superman. I only got it because you couldn't escape it. It was on the news. It was everything. I got it. I read it. I've gone over it before. All right, Man-Bat. I like Man-Bat. I didn't read this article. Sorry. Keep going. Let's keep going. Pal of the Zombies. Oh, so this is that Crypt Keeper, Tales from the Crypt show that was on HBO, right? Yeah, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger's directing debut. He directed an episode. I saw some episodes of this at the time. I met the guy that puppeteers and voices the Crypt Keeper, but horror stuff isn't really my genre. Okay, here we go. Joe Kubert revives his Stone Age hero Tor. Now, I have this comic, the revival of Tor from the 90s. Can't get that name out, but whatever. What's this? Another I'm just so cool. What's he talking about? Hey, I got that Mr. T comic, signed by Mr. T. This is just more articles about whatever. Early 90s stuff. The serial killer. I don't care about this. Let's keep going. Oh, yeah, okay. So, remember how magazines, you have your article and they never can quite finish it, but they have just enough left over that you can't fill a whole other page? So they take all those final little paragraphs and they throw them all in the back here. Continued from page 27. Continue page. It's so goofy. I guess that's how you do it. Okay, look at this. The art of H.R. Geiger, whatever. When these books came out, I remember my friend Sean got these books. His wife at the time bought these for him as a gift. And when I came over, he showed them to me. There were these gigantic, gigantic books of his paintings. And I remember thinking, you really like the art from the Aliens films. Look, I'm kind of an outsider on this. I'm not a big fan of the Alien stuff or even this art style, but I found it impressive that he had these gigantic art books and that he was taking an interest in an artist or whatever. And as I flipped through them, I just saw on every single page, it's all penises. It's just giant, metallic, shiny penises on every page. Like, what do you do with this? Get this out of my face. So that was it. I had enough, and we've had enough of this magazine, and I'll catch you next time.